We are live. Hello, everyone. I am Richard Millett, the one and only. And this is the quarantine stream. And let us hear the beautiful quarantine stream theme, shall we? Hope you're all doing okay out there, staying safe. I was going to say this before I got started. To anyone out there who might be watching this who is a creative person, and I'm 42 but younger than I am, two things. Number one, if you stick with it and are a lifer, you will constantly come across people who either it's implied or they are smacking you in the face with it that they are making you, and that is categorically untrue. The reality is you are constantly making them, and don't ever forget that, and understand the full power and scope of it. And the other thing that I would say, and I really cannot impart this sincerely or seriously enough. Censorship is evil, and self-censorship is not only evil, but it is a betrayal of your muse. And don't fall victim to that, ever. This is called the Gauntlet. Seeing her sister falling, sound of the puncture. As he sits in his box, she sits in hers, her face smeared tears, pleading for understanding. He's learned his expression and how not to hear the wailing of either sister. Alone he knows when his aim is perfect, he's untouchable. When his aim is perfect, they stay quiet. When his aim is perfect, they show respect. When I ask, they bring me water, they bring me clothes, they bring me paper. I am always my own possession. Skywriting virgins breathing exhaustedly. You can't keep singing at a grave that doesn't exist. It's unrealistic and disingenuous. I'll never answer back or visit your dreams, no matter what you think. If you insist on saying farewell, then you must leave, and don't keep me in your own private purgatory. Cracking gavel, image of entrails. I'll tell you what to do when you're half asleep. I'll erase your ability to succeed. I'll eat your concentration. It's called wax fruit. Like a shift starting at 4 a.m. without benefits and security, they knew the ex-poet lied or tried. And when he arises, smiles, and deeply breathes the morning air, he's filled with daylight. And his friends dream of him in heaven, while he dreams of seeing faces in rock formations. Like the town crier lying supine on the floor next to an unplugged vibraphone, he imagines he's on a source mission to recover 93 rare fish from the Indian Ocean and having an unfolding series of unexplainable epiphanies bounce off his eyelids and into his ears, private collages whose messages leave him inarticulate and unwilling to even try to make sense to his most loyal admirers. Instead, he thinks about moving earth between his fingers, the smell of tomatoes on the vine in the humid summer morning, and pretending he's on a cold cement floor in the locker room where the janitor won't find him, and he can think about his breathing and align all his impulses into an imperceptibly perfect balance. Around the pool, the wrestling raccoons eventually stopped to drink from a can of soup, while the deer in the reeds, the bats in the trees watched along with myself, smelling the stack of rice paper and chewing pulp, the lemon juice, in a simple accidental circle next to my pen and postcards from Nebru. As my attention wandered, I was staring up, pensive and with little use for amusement, picturing my peers and their futures in wheelchairs, asking a physical therapist for help. And in an hour of uncertainty, one can become fragile and feel safe in that space, for years repeatedly living out the fear of being put there again. We become fragile and lose sense of what's natural, become fragile and not recover what's hidden, become fragile and ignore colors in the spectrum, become fragile and wonder why we're living, become fragile and think there won't be redemption. The witness said she'd never seen the like of you before, and the rumpled polka-dot dress, the mismatched flats stretched wide across your feet, the misapplied makeup, drawing the eye away from the razor burn and stubble, marking your white legs, the thin black wig framing your face, but mostly, of course, the chipped front-tooth smile of your uncontrolled jubilance as you skipped down the staircase. But in that moment, it was unbeknownst to you that your associates had missed, and while you carried out the planned exit, your target had already given you all the slip. And though there were theories around the handling of the case, despite strict orders, the tapes were never erased. It's called I Walk with God. I walk with God through all my changes, during my happiness, and throughout my challenges. I walk with God, close to my memories, through my mistakes, past all my actions. I walk with God for forgiveness, for resolution, to see the stages I play a role in. I walk with God because I know it's easy to fall into false humility or declare your own authority. I walk with God to try and understand as much as I can about the expanse of creation. I walk with God because of the moments when I see serendipity and grace expressed so sublimely. I'm only here to accept my responsibility. I walk through a world I don't like, and as time went on, I felt more disconnection. I walk through a world I don't like until I had almost complete separation of my selves. I walk through a world I don't like, and this wasn't troubling. I thought it would help. I walk through a world I don't like, and that I could make a true observation and learn and improve. I walk through a world I don't like, but I found that the obverse was true, and that the more I remained detached and considering the reflection, the more I became unnatural and obsessed with my own protection. Excuse me. It's called Swim to the Center. When I wasn't, I was offensive. Outside the wave, weak without a mission, never gaining strength. Why not? Yes, the river slithers, the confession pathetic. Center of the solid rock, punched clear through. Only a human with a circuit, a sky with breath. The order must be ignored. Action and full action. I am ready. So, are you going to swim to the center or waste your time in space? Do you know your energy lasts forever, or are you convinced you should be stuck in one place? So, what are you going to do? Protect your ego and hide in some group? We're free, and so are you, and you better understand that, because if not, we're all through. Are you going to swim to the center, or choose not to act? Are you going to deny and try and feel better, or create a load of crap no one gets? What are you going to do? Lie behind shame, slogans, flags, and fake facts? We are here, and so are you. And if you don't understand that, we are all through. And what I see is invisible. We see together. What I feel is immeasurable. We feel together. What we make is untouchable. It's for the future. What we are is infinite. It's in the universe. Remember, wind is everywhere. Remember to smile at the air. Remember, you build each star. Remember to smile in the dark. This was actually going to be what I opened with this week, and then I changed my mind. This is called Milky Skies. For 3 weeks, I've seen the sky as one color stretched over a muted spectrum, and I've heard tiny handbells clang at irregular intervals. Without forethought, I was in a state of unstable concentration, with my sense of decency tested. I stared at celeste-colored veins and remembered how they were made. I was reminded of the worm, thankful to be placed back in the dirt after suffering a 2-inch gash on its side from careless shoveling. The youngest lady stops weeping and waiting and steps into invisibility, her velvet-lined pockets filled with small wreaths of braided blue stems. While embarrassed at how much she once admired her mother's brooches, she now fully blushes at her wish to own an ocean full of stone. Her friends repeatedly requested questions, only furthers her hesitation, so she leaves a small note of explanation. Life is grossly inelegant in its demands that one must impatiently forget chores performed with red impressions left intact from knots affixed to ankles and wrists as if the sores never existed. Shock of copper curls, cerulean halos in his eyes, considers his environment, and with his shoulders pinned back, adjusts his balance and stands straight up in his raft. The one idea that has possessed him so vanishes out from his mind, pierces the sea, then its velocity escapes gravity and reaches away past the sky, but he fears no lack of purpose, or whether this time has been meaningless. He has total devotion to the base truth of his vocation. His ankles give way, and he falls back gently, lands on his hands while some water splashes in. He considers those who would deride his actions and thinks, I don't require any clothes. I'd rather remain naked for everyone. I felt watched when I first voluntarily gave away confidential information, then tried to explain the layout of San Antonio to a stranger who never knew I'd never been there before. And now, as minutes become limitless, any vows I made always sustained me. I felt watched when my thinking was clean and capable of strict reasoning, and I rode along freshly painted runways, left notes on license plates, brambles, and high chairs, and now, as lassitude disintegrates, any vows I made remain unchanged. I felt watched when my legs were bathed in a heat as persistent and unruly as a bat taunting a seal, repeatedly landing on its shoulder and squealing. And now, as fury impassively fades, any vows I made could never break. I felt watched when I attended 10 drawing classes and attempted to finish a full circle freehand without interference between thought and motion. And now that my hands are patient, any vows I made are everything. Here she flies, and now we know if the promises made more than 10 years ago have been kept. Here she flies with 2 pens, rosary, brass paperweight, earrings, locket, and measurements written on a business card. Here she flies, gums and hair receded, a miniature brace for a baby wrapped in grade hardened plastic. Here she flies with an oxygen tank bubbling ceaselessly, a UHF channel on the television showing an old western silently. Here she flies, while I stand with tentative confirmation, a glass of thickened water, and 3 empty white boxes. Here she flies, with skin like marble over winding staircases, and rooms with seafoam-colored walls and intimidating machinery. It's called Virgin Prairie. Laying straight and still, staring down at rivulets filled with flattened cicada shells, waiting at dusk, watching people across the field try and weave a blanket from ashes, matted branches, and dabbed grass. But I barely care. I'm distracted by voices echoing over the horizon. Voices I listened so hard to. One sounded like a melting telephone, one sang like typewriter keys, another rang like a confused bluebird, and is since locked in my memory. I tried to find where on the prairie I could sleep at daybreak, but I was woken up by voices that waved in the air like film projected on fog, voices that hovered like an underexposure on a robin's wing. I searched my thoughts, hoping to realize which voices I took for granted, the ones that only appear every other year. I got lazy and lost intervals of hours staring at the sun circling in the sky. I got confused and gave incorrect directions to a couple of asking backpackers. I got angry about heredity and when carelessness intertwines with chronology. I could not control my shaking limbs or the cold sweat on my forehead. I needed to tend to my health. I needed to walk steadily without help. I needed to make a fire and learn to stop time. I needed to be the watch one has to wind. There's a chance, we'll see if I want to do this one or not. I'm going to take a look at it for like 2 seconds. Yeah. This is from a book I never finished. I worked on it between 1999 and 2001. Upon realizing that I was never going to finish said book, I put this out on a compilation of material. So, definitely have never read this before. Or if I did, I read it in like, I did it at like, 21 years ago, maybe. We'll see. It's called Letters. I heard the sadness. We're all afraid of our parents. Edit out the words and form the perfect sentence. Green and black down the center aisle. Folded, scalpel holding and desperate, light illuminating, underneath the form-fitting x-ray. The novel name and the verse tense shifting, and I see interlock, it compressed, delete Dove's blood. He stopped communicating. Make the statement with fact and diction. It's called Horse. Let's share the silence while everyone's absent. With the electricity out, it's unknown if the edges can be seen. Thin line. Take your clothes off and find if you're purple, supine, time to get reserved by disengaged, dreary people. I'm optimistic enough to whisper in your ear, vanish into the walls, and watch you walk to the chair. Let's share the silence, test the power of my stare, and the limits of your willingness, then pretend we're unaware when you stand in front of the mirror and all the stringent reasons why you're really here. I'm clear enough to stand near the back, not against your thigh, to avoid glancing at your eyes. Let's share the silence, ease into your patience, measuring what each instant takes, seconds after the temperature breaks, and staying anxiously awake, while the next 7 minutes are advanced into minute facets slipping across conjoined elements. I'm open enough to adjust the embryo window, your tight spine, your consent, the tension kept sacrosanct. It's called Pearls. There'd been a robbery in her apartment. The dentist dabbed at the blood dripping off his drill and said, "That was a lot more than I expected." They had hit Carrie's place while she slept. The cops spent the early hours asking her questions, like did she have any enemies, perhaps somebody in her family. They told her to screen her calls, implored her to invest in some security. Ultimately, the only items of value taken were a few pieces of jewelry. Bankers' boxes were duct taped shut and loaded in the truck, their contents filled with scrap, to go get melted down by guys who don't care whether it came from an abandoned ironworks or was brass stolen from a Catholic school. Gregory never thought it would come to this. The ranch was facing foreclosure. He'd gotten a wedge of glass jammed into his hand, and his girlfriend had spent $25 she didn't have on an ugly antique horseshoe she hung upside down in the doorway. "I should have known when we were standing at your mother's grave that you wouldn't speak any longer. I should have known when we were standing at your mother's grave, walled in a cold fog." Gregory looked down at the 4 inches of stained skin on his left forearm and thought what that symbol meant to him when he was 18, and how gutted he felt when he noticed the girl at the bank had the same thing on her ankle. While the detective tried to focus on the negatives from the crime scene, intently scanning for details he might otherwise miss, but he was distractedly irritated by the accidental double exposures and dark splotches of silver salts on his fingertips. "I used to walk much quicker and look over my shoulder. Now I no longer worry. I used to walk much quicker, but now I've been absolved of responsibility." There was a beautiful storm last night that disrupted the 90-degree heat and blocked out the 6 p.m. sun, the smell of mud running over the fresh blacktop, icy rain that came like the crest of a wave, cutting short the humidity, my clothes and hair getting drenched, the holes in the soles of my shoes letting the water soak my feet, and as I walked in circles across the nearly empty parking lot. Two Franciscan nuns. Chewing mint leaves while crossing the Calumet River, the paper mill's exhaust pipes interrupt the vista. Mules waited with surge protectors, hairspray, and cassettes, a riverboat of morphine-addicted ghosts on the left. Two Franciscan nuns wanted to build a hospital that settled for organizing games of chance. In their hotel rooms, they squeeze out extra acidic orange juice and excommunicate people with unpleasant names from the phone book. Two Franciscan nuns helped decorate an admiral in the pensioner's home after he'd misplaced his uniform. They blessed his pills, kissed his parakeet, and as he slept, gathered sets of his false teeth to sell at the swap meet. A brain with blood and oxygen is better than a fish who talks. What some people see as skin discoloration is in fact the natural pigmentation when viewed from inside. Some newspapermen have always known this, and have nothing to hide. Called physical copies. He detached himself years ago, spent every night this week with his face in his phone, or making excuses why he cannot come home. What is he looking at for so many hours? Where does he go? What is it that captivates him so? You respect his privacy, but you also have a right to know. Maybe he only wants the girlfriend experience instead of the reality. Perhaps he can only cope with false intimacy. Or maybe it just took this long to discover that his natural disposition could easily be described as unpleasantly empty. Maybe in his mind he's only got 8 months to live. Maybe he's just too afraid to be embarrassed. Or maybe he only cares about his ease of convenience. You figure that he can't even remember the memories that you treasure. You catch him glancing at you and wonder if he's recalling something he once heard Mr. Blackwell say. The more hardware, the less personality. What does he spend his money on? All you know is that he never has enough, and he doesn't buy the things he used to show interest in. And he certainly hasn't gotten you a gift in months. He doesn't seem to respond to your new clothes, makeup, or perfume. And then there's the most disconcerting fact when you realize that even the implants won't bring him back. It's called Jade. Winter went without finale. One brain with seagull emeralds and a chop of jade thicker than my wrist. Glancing became the transmission like a doorbell whistling in a veterans parade. So behind the minute hand extends more than obligation and demands more than devotion. Passion is 10,000 tiny cuts so untraceable they dye emotions without ever gracing the surface. Lightning travels celebrations and standing full face toward the stark light and thin wire swordplay. Who's been saying in this bed? No one without articulation, tempo, and psychic extrapolative hysterics. At the break, I am pacing, ignorant to stillness, shattering shins, pushing flagpoles out of the fields, locking engines to mortar, and blushing with inevitable glory leave. Hey. All right. This is, we're going to conjoin two pieces. So this is one possible ending, and it's going to go straight into Passing for White. So the morning started with the Lord Mayor looking through my garbage, then running down an alleyway, guardsmen lining the fire escapes. I was at the airport, selling luggage and pleasantries. A 20-year-old let me finish his breakfast in exchange for a letter from his university. With so many people watching slow-motion explosions, I've started turning my sights towards unfiltered colors and unretouched images. The unwalked world where cures for disease sleep unnoticed in Brazilian trees is a word problem that I can't solve. While so many people are watching slow-motion explosions, I've started adjusting to diagrams, drafting tools, and handmade copper crowns. There are already enough code breakers for the next Cold War. More feathered hats and white suits in the lobbies of the finest luxury hotels that Europe has to offer. More handcrafted sports cars to speed along the smoothest roads man has ever known. More than enough gold to flake into steaming froth with sumptuously verdant acres. Collar crime. You've used it before, posting signs pointing to the closest church. He needs an infusion, and his coffee is cold. He stayed up all night to see himself dancing on television. The church is closed, to be reopened by the mayor's cousin in construction. The glistening grocery store, the tavern with daily fashion shows. He set up a conference call, and he's trustworthy because he looks like me, big white belly like a fish. The hotel with large chunks and missing bricks, the police station next to the building with the sign that says a law firm, the truck enforcement officer standing in the oncoming lane with his arms outstretched in ecstasy, overseen by a smiling baby, somehow able to say, I could smile 12 weeks from conception. I show my hand, I know. I always show my hand. Meanwhile, at 7 a.m., 2 cars, 3 spaces apart in the White Castle parking lot. 1 man each gets out. On the left, he's wearing jeans and a flannel shirt and a cowboy hat. On the right, a charcoal gray business suit. They walk in a V-shaped meet at the door with a handshake. Then heated conversation. The corner of the cowboy's mouth starts to bubble and foam. As she's wobbling down the sidewalk, her skin-tight clothes somehow hang off of her, and she's watched by a man in a tracksuit holding a cell phone to his ear in silence. 20 feet away, the party crew pulls a U-turn. As she's wobbling down the street, Lance Romance throws 20s at the guys waving away fruit flies, then shows his people why this is the finest fire extinguisher you'll ever find. The party crew spots the car wash and gets in line. They watch the jets bubble and foam, pretend they're superheroes with unlimited powers to make bubbles and foam. The Ranos Industries deploying a prick-approved ecosystem, agreeing on a settlement for widespread future technology, she said accusingly and secretively, retiring her blood lesson company. Watch it bubble and foam. Frozen in place, the beer can. Hair extensions, pubic hair, bondage wear, eagle eyes, white fumes, flying fingers, tops and bottoms, middling kingdom. Gamblers rejoice. I'm in a flood zone. Watch them bubble and foam where form follows steam and bourbon follows cream. Bubble and foam over the safety warning. The crude delights set one's sweat glands reeling with a shark tooth covered in pudding. The owner urges everyone to look out the window at the condo, tow truck, victim, night, uniform, camera, newspaper, bank, park, yard, new restaurant. As if he's got some psychic powers. He was taught the meaning of versatility, respect for the law, trust for fistfights, and an arid humor that snorts debris when under the advisement of enforced idleness. This is called Allison, where the blue sea and icebergs are. She's ice cream, and there she's down the hall. She uses words like everything and all. I can hear her, but I can't make out her features. I know she spends her weekends in a cement cinema making notes. The girl next to her tries to see what she wrote. Allison wonders why the guy in the elevator keeps glancing at her and why the weather keeps jumping between rain and sun every 30 minutes. She keeps saying, "Quit asking me questions. I'm innocent." As people assume she's joking, Allison wonders, what are the windows thinking on a day where there's a white line down the center of the sky? Her mind cuts back to the guy in the elevator with a quick look at me, look at you, we're equals. Allison wonders if she can keep hiding while knowing they're following me. Allison writes, what started as hopes are now observations, mostly about nature, and being young stops being fascinating once it's done. Allison looks at her bowl of spinach, and her eyes focus down to the details of one leaf, and she quietly speaks. An atheist sees this and can only think of the mud it grows from. Allison writes, we extend grace out of our own sense of grace, and smiles because she's not sure if that's something of her own thinking or something she's half remembering from 2 or 3 incarnations ago. Allison considers why her back and hands are so slippery, and when she's invisible, and she tells her sister, my tongue is a graffiti sponge. I wonder if I'll have to make love in front of a judge. Allison considers that she's a character who looks and acts just like her, then draws a bath with the lights off. Allison invites her guests to walk barefoot while cherries and red confetti float out of her phone. Allison considers emptying cash registers if the security cameras lose power. But what she mostly wants are completely natural segues with no artificial blend. So, with that in mind, make thoughts your aim or nerve blaming when all meet with you at your beginnings, but make allowances for their worn out tools and make dreams a trap for fools after they are gone. This is quickly becoming an old favorite. Flowers at the foot of the cave. I will say this. At the time that this was written, was the beginning of my brief phase as a single man in the mid-2010s. And there was I did not know that soccer moms, I did not know that sort of box wine drinking soccer moms gathered together and to do therapeutic coloring, like coloring books. I had no idea that this existed. And so I saw that there was an event at a local gallery and you could do coloring. And I was very down on myself because I was a bit of a recluse. And I thought, I will do this and this will be fun. And my dad was in the hospital at the time, and he was encouraging me to sort of go out more, and I thought, well, this will be like a laugh, and I had no idea who would attend this thing. And I get there, and I was not only the one male, but I was also like the one person under 50. and it was an incredibly awkward evening, and I really wanted to leave, but the woman who ran the gallery was thrilled to have a male there, and basically positioned me like in such a way that I would have to walk around her to get out the door, and I sort of meekly colored for 30 minutes and then made my exit. It was an extremely awkward night. So that's sort of the mental image that I have. Because this is the piece I think I had started this piece already, but I was working on this around that time. And the cat is down here. Normally keep the door closed upstairs, but today we left it open because the cat has been coming down here a lot. And this is I wonder if I could pick her up. It's a little tricky. She doesn't always like being picked up. Yeah, no, she doesn't. Definitely doesn't want to be. All right. As soon as I swung my leg around so I could, she bolted. Okay. Enough has jazz. This is Flowers at the Foot of the Cave. Swinging light bulb above a cracked basement window, a painting depicting the creation of creation in a makeshift bed. I made up a new name for you that I'll only keep in my head. Look at the jewel resting in the bottom of the wooden cup, or the stack of handwritten sheets explaining the steps of the ritual in rich, deep red, and the names of everyone there exist in my head. My head. Charcoal renderings of saints ripped from a magazine and pinned to the door, dented bits of metal shaped to make a mosaic and pushed into the floor. Quarter-inch thick spray-painted silver ribbons looped like ringlets in the air, and the floating stray white veins from a feather landing on your hair. Here I sit, half childish, with freshly washed clothes strewn over the chair. A tray with orange peels, melon rinds, and empty glasses rests balanced on the table's edge while I'm reading a map leading to a room more colorful than the womb, where I can overhear things other than gurgling and organs rushing. But still, this will always be in its infancy, because love is where Genesis greets infinity, and for proof you can look in my eyes, even though I won't confirm or deny how much of this is true, but I trust that will get worked out by you. How you guys doing out there? Having fun? It's called the Vatican Vaults. Shelves lined with caskets, ripe fruit piled in baskets. Sugar cubes and teacups rattle as saucers are dragged across tablecloths. Outside, a crowd sits murmuring. A harmonium coughs discordantly off the spokes of a bicycle wheel, and snakeskin is carefully wrapped around palms. Two men each wear a veil, one off mauve, the other pink lady red. Gravel sits at the bottom of stained glass vials, and mink pelts are smoothed out over tiles. Three elderly spinsters raise their voices in praise, their weathered hands shaking at the sky. Gold medals tied around their waists reflect the sun directly into children's eyes. Four blind beggars fool the crowd into believing they're brothers who compete by tying knots and rope faster than any comers, the act only ending at dusk when they split their spoils. Stars roll around the moon, back and forth from end to end. Clouds erase them away when each new day begins. This is one I've read a few times before. So when I started, I didn't do readings for a very long time, and between 2015 and 2001, I think I did like 6 or 7. And I had written all of this material. I put out a lot of books in that time, and when I started doing readings again, This piece is one of the reasons I started doing readings and was looking forward to it, because I knew that this one was going to be good. So it's called People. I am a young man closed off in this room. My name, it doesn't matter. Where I'm from, I can't tell you. I always wanted to control my destiny, not share responsibility, so I could be free. They sent me off to college so I could learn the law. I met a lot of people, each one with a different cause. I turned myself to physics and astronomy to see if I could throw away the seeds they put in me. I drifted down to the south and I saw it was vast. I memorized equations on the eyeless ending sand. I knew that my superiors, they were very strong. They would put me up in space and never steer me wrong. But my expectations didn't fly and they kept me on the ground. The paperwork was drafted and I was shown around. They checked my pass for arrest, my retinas were scanned. I hoped there would come a day where I could take command. They made me go and lock the doors and cue the landing lights. It was a secret mission in the middle of the night. The burner started blaring. I crawled inside my suit, knew I wouldn't come back even if they asked me to. I am a young man closed off in this room. My name, it doesn't matter. Where I'm from, I can't tell you. I always wanted to control my own destiny, wanted to go and vanish up in the slipstream. The emperor looked at the head of the horse, lifted his hand and picked out the brain, opened his mouth and smeared the remains. He dressed his servants as nymphs and pans. Little boys and the nudes stayed in the pool to bite on his body while he swam. His sister said, if breath is a blade, then desire's the cage. Claim your birthright before you're saved. Had his mother killed, made it a crime to laugh, attack the statue whose clothes matched his own, his bleeding fists sunk into the gold. He memorized the lives of the gods. Jezebel stole him a tunic. He began planning his burial, and at night he debated with Jupiter. He saw Palatine Hill. The volcanoes were calm before the Christians burned. Diamond-tipped shovels were used to pierce the columns and arches, jewels and violins. The violins on Palatine Hill played like birds colliding in the air. The torches flared. All the grain was set glowing. The senator's body rolled back on the sheets, his speech like a paused spasm, murmuring, I'm nursing a viper. The rest of the ward willingly succumbed immediately. In the middle of the gymnasium were booths with men in bulletproof vests giving out ballots and voluntary vaccinations to guard against contaminants. While in line, you could read pamphlets on the issues or flip to pictures of festering boils. It's slippery and strange to walk all alone. Sealed lips will keep the borders closed, and no infestations will travel north. Nothing to arrest security, just to keep people in the grasp of liberty. The medicine was made with pearls dissolved in vinegar. The choice was made by pulling the lever. The searchlights were made for us by the protector. A thief entered. Everyone was roused. The wife and kids looked to the head of the house. He opened his robe and threw a small bomb. Later, standing over the intruder's body, he thought through history and spoke his favorite quote, I want him to feel like he's dying. Free grain for everyone who asks, free grain for everyone who enters. Wheat in exchange for marble. Wheat for the state. She takes the leather, squirms in the saddle. The dust closes her eyes. I could see the red jacket from here. Two girls climb the stairs, very poised and aware. They'd been here before, the Los Angeles smog against their backs. Two men arrive the next morning to drop off a pair of glasses and smear the window pane. The teenager can't make a sale, so he packs up his stereo equipment and his clock radio, exits out past the telephone pole. When they were done, they sat in the kitchen and carved up some watermelon. An hour later, they threw away their clothes. Young man in the backyard. The owner doesn't know he's there. Taking a drink from the garden hose. Drops his flashlight on the ground. He dropped his flashlight on the ground. Blue-soaked Scepter. kink in my neck that runs to my kidneys, distracting me from movies I've long memorized and repeating quotations I've lived inside of, and I've no desire to rewrite history that doesn't concern me. When what I didn't know already felt familiar, when I saw the inscription on my commemorative plaque had been worn back to smooth silver, when I slipped behind the mist, changed clothes, washed my hands, and shaved, with no light, with no intention of anyone seeing my face for a while. I was willingly walked through a coal-stained city lot and deposited into the back seat of an all-running, windowless army green car, which was then locked from the outside. Mary! Had I abandoned my practice, committed an indirect affront in my brief absence? My name is Keith. The beggar at my door raised his arm but soft, and I listened to his parables that had no center. My name is Luke. With an auspicious mistress beside me, I looked at a baby looking out a window at fluttering street signs. My name is Julia. My temperature was gentle. My name is Julia. My temper was gentle as I read a sermon called, "Are You Here to Celebrate the Death of Death?" My name is Giles. I wish that I'd been obscured when my ears were bitten with endearment while I was plainly ignored. My name is Grace. I was observed by 3 people whose accounts proved suggestible and fractured. My name is Abigail. I forced hard concentration when I, in truth, spoke forcefully about my forged fingerprints. My name is Morgan. I spent twilight emptied, save for sketching a red tunic on bent paper. My name is Brooke. I was registered in a hotel under an assumed name and made a list of families I pitied. My name is Gabriel. I singed my hair and clothes trying to be recalled. The sky had been moonless for 29 nights. Why couldn't I stay? I was bothered by the way the streetlights hit the trees and reflected off the leaves. I took a knife and short length of rope. 6 hours later, I'm waiting for you to arrive. Carrying a scepter and wearing a breastplate with frayed shoulder blades and exhausted eyes, I'm waiting for you to arrive. Sitting cross-legged on the sodden deck with wayward souls who were barely seen, I leapt off the ledge and was soon out of haunt as I climbed the concave shores, wondering should I forage, catch a gudgeon, or eat unbruised fruit that had fallen. The gravelly, guttered soil gave way to encroaching forest with dense rows weighted with wet purple limbs that succumbed to gravity and wind. Then abruptly I was in the center of a champaign, and the only objects I found were short rows of tree stumps and stones, each carved with the query, "What made you look here?" I danced away into the odd even and was again pursued by the thicket's reach. The thorns licked my calves, the anthills shone like pebbled glass. I brushed past a frog with a violet tongue and discolored teeth who gulped for relief, while his body remained static like a splayed thread in aspic. I made my way into the antres and found myself prating, "Prithee, pray tell what you remember of working your hands into the mud, feeling it curl under your fingernails. It feels like a relic reunited with its original setting after having been figured lost or only seen in a dream." Betimes I glanced around for the traveling lamp while standing beside the curvature, hearing myself call to datelessly abandoned wizards and leasing, and to be faithfully young-eyed. I returned once more to the champaign and sat among the stones in silence. I received no visions or visitations, no inspiration to invent an incantation, and in this vacuum of communication I only experienced the sense or perchance suggestion of the imposing press of eras and atmosphere, and now I noticed this restless weather, shy beams of sunlight moving sideways through the strings of remaining rain. outsider envy. Sorry about that. When I didn't eat because I was afraid of being fat. When I stopped combing my hair because I didn't care, because it was beaten or mocked out of me. I never knew and had no way of knowing when they were calling me fat or a fag. This is the second act, and it's dedicated to everyone I've survived. This is the second act, and it's dedicated to everyone who's survived. I got a hangnail. If it were possible, I'd gone outside with a brown paper bag over my head with eye holes cut out. Now this is the second act, and the people who beat me wish they were me. Because now they have outsider envy. They want it so badly to cop a little piece of being picked last or never invited to the party, and use that as the basis of an argument that too many people have too many rights, risk their future because they can't work out how to bully back, so they try to cop my attitude. They used to beat me and now they got outsider envy. And now I don't have hair and I still don't care. And we will survive you. Can't be me with one lane of news. Can't be me trying to swim a clogged stream. Can't be me making billionaires happy. Can't be me trying to relive the 80s. Can't be me when you've got outsider envy. And you still don't have to worry about being black, and wouldn't trade places if you could, but you try to cop a little piece of their pain, snidely working some slang advertised for blue lives who are authorized to satisfy your cravings. The question is, what's your joke? Boil down your building and pretend it's a community with a creative culture, but it's just a Burger King. It's just your latest costume. This is the second act, and take a good look. Take a good look, because I'm what your future's supposed to look like. And the future is for everyone who's survived you, which really isn't that fucking hard to do. This is the future, and the truth too. Everyone knows the story about the Emperor's new clothes, but what if the Emperor disrobed, and his subjects in court were aghast or disinterested in his state of undress? What if he defiantly stood there naked anyway? When the Guardian goes mad, the sun rains against their eardrums, indistinguishable from Morse code tapping on a copper plate. Yes, when the Guardian has gone mad, they're found singing love songs to tanks, draping staircases and flags, breaking their car windows to decorate their faces with the glass. When the Guardian goes mad, they're captured pushing a pickaxe into an LED screen and detained for threatening to throw snakes at gas station attendants. When the Guardian goes mad, people suddenly remember to turn on AM radio and patiently follow guidelines before filing a full report. Though there are always doubters and passers-by who start conspiracies, the usual being that this was a planned distraction. If the Guardian goes mad, they'll arrive at every awards ceremony with a mirror in hand and a ribbon under their chin and make demands to review the voting process when they don't win. If the Guardian goes mad, they'll rue the day they lost control of their relationships and spending weeks in hiring staff to bury paperwork they'll insist doesn't exist. If the Guardian goes mad, all their meals shall consist of orange peels pulled from chain-link fences with burned coffee flavored with molded peach preserves. though there are always doubters ready to offer an opinion of unverifiable proof, summarizing that death and naps are the only real measures of impact. If the Guardian cracks up, they'll spend bleak days envisioning trees committing suicide, grandmothers doing crystal meth for the first time, and gnats smeared into toothpaste. If the Guardian cracks up, 7 strangers stuck in a bank will claw at each other to seek cold air in the vault and wait for their families and firemen to come dig them out. If the Guardian cracks up, pirates walk their own planks and devour themselves once they hit the water, thrashing back at their gnashing teeth, running the seas red until hunter and prey are finally one. Ignorance, arrogance. The pest control man said unto me, when I was in Japan, I bought cherry bread in a can. I opened it with a knife and slid off the wrapper. The air bubbles just stayed floating in my mouth, and I rolled them around until I returned back to the West. Bliss tolerance. The pest control man said unto me, sometimes my apartment building turns into a vending machine, and I get deposited out into the evening to provide goods and services for a few lucky couples with good taste and a few wandering dollars to rub together. Where should I go? A small, thin gray line with a mechanical reach, oral residence and recognition, damp handprints on mosaics. Where should I go? Empty and without suggestion, dry bathtub, antiseptic self, turquoise pottery carefully washed, not included in collection debates, and can catalog itself. A black and white television crackling on the last analog signal, transmitting drip brush pixelation to friends who have never met before dawn with unbent antennas and tinfoil knobs, with no larger connection and no network without notice or critical thought. Pure broadcast. Where should I go? To a cricket's lake, where Mona Lisa and George Washington's faces urgently run by on filmy soap transfers until they burst into digital diagonal scribbles that shock sleeping bluebirds, and hunting robins where austere diagrams of skeletons are traced onto colored chalk onto trees, and oil sticks litter the walkways, where oysters recover jewelry fallen overboard and forgotten, where flashlights find glimpses into windows and fluoride is poured into jugs of cola. Where should I go? With a shopping bag full of batteries, returning a stolen bike to its parent company, walking in between unclean delivery trucks in need of repair, while raw-toned steel whistle air floats on wisps of strawberry hair and accelerated voices and nonsensical 10-second annoyances, a magician perfecting an illusion which ends with them curling up and sliding down a tree, then pretending to be asleep while assessing what the crowd seems to think. Then a throne is carried on, seating a man in a parchment crown and wrapped in beach towels. Where should I go? Into a kitchen with aluminum knives and nurses in white lab coats and blue rubber gloves, rolls of tissue paper and unfolded t-shirts and personalized engraved nameplates. Where should I go? Knees to the chest. Where should I go? Scissors shining in the sun. Where should I go? Salt shedding skins. Bunny neutered around the ringworm, dancing with a spectral beauty that isolates sweeting pipes and flowers from their glorious panderings, only to find they need no bounds to pillage the free-flow love mine boiling on the calluses of their corneas. But you, yes, you know him, actually, on the second time around, forever never considered why you laugh or what you grunt behind, and nothing is, alas, everything, has been unrecovered by the sallow aristocracy implosion, in order when little girls encased in gender sunshine pull down the dawn and shrink merrily of the conquest of fantasy facts, that in which proven by the powers that appear in, by, how, where, because the lightning rays that is the steel girder stapled to the collective loin, nicked off its kerosene shell until a rural timeshare spat mucus from the other depths of their backwoods soul scenery and trounced upon radiators, slashing sharply in the wind in neatly layered sharkskin sweater investments, droning to the click drum madness that haunts the delights of cupids and raises their swords to obscene fool Nancy's that now, branching to the stratosphere, came nearer and nearer to their choice flight of destination, gesticulatingly appointed by the elder Olympus, that no man hath done tread upon, neither conquering nor salivating, to the twisted pipeline perpetuating ghostly inconsequence. leading in to the crescendo that yearns to flee away, perhaps to the gutter, perhaps to the perforation, perhaps to the hostages caged in the womb, 36 inches by the only thoughts you can't repress, manifesting to suggest that by life and honor the first depths came forth united to the loyalty neither comprehend, instead shaping the wing toss so flagrantly as well known to regard its own high priest as the height and unique daft eccentricity. Oh man, she who curses doth not will the plentitude into sleeping with only scraping stones from its fingerprints, tangled lewdly and in connection and gratification with the floundering spider's web. Let's go party of colors. Her eyes open while she pretends she can feel her fontanelle. She thought she might be a post person or her cousin. She read the news, fear of law and God and man, into an infinite dynamic loop. She was one image at a time, so she thought she was a person, right? She wrote some news. Platitudes aren't solutions and fill space between waves. Now I'm new. She also knew that the feeling of being new was something she could always circle back around to. Like a coral pink butterfly heading to me, you're looking through your jeweled eyes and I'm waiting for your surprise. A birthday card, an aquarium hung on the wall, a memory in a vein swimming around, arriving too late to hear a favorite song. Flying like a honeybee that counts the flap of its wings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, keeping everything else alive. Bubbles on the honeycomb coming together in unusually warm weather. Honeybee, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, keeping everything else alive. Now then! The present is in the future, history is present, the future is present, the present is present, and history is history, and we see the future pushed to the foreground wonderfully. All three, you and me, I hope our future is like flying birds. And now we're wide awake. The weather is in the sea, gravityless moment, caught and dotted with cherry trees and colored pencils. There is very little in life that matches what I feel when you smile back at what I whisper to you. We're in the room and out of nowhere, looking at the inlet together in letters and circles, like a slit in the curtain, like a fluttering bird ready to bathe, like an oxidized copper fountain. I want to be with you always, all the time. Like a white shirt with a fresh grass stain, like a streetlight breathing air, like waving from the top of a ladder. You plan all the plans, always, all the time. Like a strawberry on the counter, like fingernails washed clean, like a bee being curious of a new flower. You are adorable, always, all the time. Like pickled ginger on salmon, like a workbench in the sun, like an invention imagined. We are here with each other, always, all the time. Like a cat cornering a grasshopper, like a licked stamp pressed with a thumb, like a rectangle with unbroken corners. You are mine, I am yours, always, all time. I'm dancing with the skeleton key pinned under my belt the night after I had two simultaneous dreams, an ocular split screen, one where a white-tailed fawn galloped to the front door and another where my brother couldn't sleep. I am dancing with the skeleton key tied on a twine cord around my neck, remembering when my sister was locked in a minivan and stranded in the parking lot outside of Austin. She kissed the windows and ate the tape in the cassette deck. I'm dancing with the skeleton key in my unopened mouth, tucked behind my wisdom teeth and obscured by my tongue. I have memories that my sister still won't believe, and I miss the 20th century. It could have been so much better. I'm dancing with the skeleton key, scotch taped to my arm. When I was in school, the vice principal gave himself a heart condition, trying to figure out who had stolen from the convenience store, then boasted about it on the blackboard. I'm dancing with the skeleton key in the grotto of a dilapidated Catholic church, where the priest confessed to me that after each funeral he performed, the only way he could raise his spirits was by making uneasy music with the organist. I'm dancing with a skeleton key, concealed in an alley while the bells chime at midnight near the railroad, where kids with no curfew dodge between dashing headlights on their way to play hide and seek in the park. I'm dancing with a skeleton key laid on the floor of a garage while my brother draws out diagrams on poster boards, connecting lines from consequences of thoughts to isolated islands of thinking divided by unintended regression of actions. I'm dancing with the skeleton key while I'm safe at home, looking at sealed bags of clothes that I stopped wearing years ago while I was running for mayor on an unconfirmed platform of leaking information about the governor. I'm dancing with the skeleton key in an adjacent office because the evidence my brother uncovered just got delivered to the lawyer, and he predicts it will make the judge jump and remove any condemnation from his mouth. I'm I'm dancing with the Skeleton King. In a strip mall that used to be a swimming pool, and before that, a man-made hill that covered a demilitarized waste trucked in from a Floridian basin that will still take 100,000 years before any of it reaches its half-life. I'm dancing with the Skeleton Key clasped tightly in my hand as I watch my sister in the mirror speak sentences with one word and plant orchids next to power lines in the backyard. Then she dots the driveway with empty jars to accurately measure the rainfall. I'm dancing with the Skeleton Key, my pocket moving loosely with me. My brother used to cry bitterly to our parents every time he got a ticket, refuting each offense, denying he did any of it. I'm dancing with the Skeleton Key, sliding uncomfortably in my shoe, but the new sense helps give me the presence of mind to always hold up what I was taught, that when the rent is due, it's better to be full and well slept than to hand over a blank check. I'm dancing with the Skeleton Key, pressed into a book, watching Leaves in the Wind and a novelist at a press conference performing fake sign language, hoping it will get him the attention he wants for trying to revive the printed word. Is there a more noble cause? I'm gathering first impressions. The floor is red, her dress is wet. I can picture her standing in a large glass filled with ice, leaping to reach the umbrella to pull herself out. Her hair is a yellow circle and her hands are slightly curled, as if she's unsure if they should lay flat or if she should be holding a prop. I'm gathering first impressions. He's standing in front of an ornately carved wood display. His hair is a rust-colored bubble. His smile beams out from behind the cutout mouth of a translucent mask. He looks like he could be the mayor in a western, bleeding gold badge, neatly polished six-shooter, resting on his holster, ready to stare the bad guy down into obeying the law. I'm gathering first impressions. Her hair is a rosary made of rhinestone dust. Her pristine gloves suggest a list of items she'd refuse to touch. Her gown isn't for flowing motion, more for stiffened gestures, sewn laboriously by dressmakers who clearly owe her favors. In the Industrial Revolution, she hunched over gaslights, armed with a penknife, and a Volksschule Yarki and Kaschen von Gaschigstein. I'm gathering first impressions. She tries to stand tall, but her shoulders defensively slouch. She's never Eichten before. She's the mother of the Best Actress winner, taken to the Oscars as a gift for years of support, but untrusting of these flashing surroundings. Wears a thinly stretched matriarchal smile, reassuring only to those who glance at her in passing. I'm gathering first impressions. He looks like he's about to lunge, maybe while pulling out a knife or a gun. Brill-cream thin streams of hair stretched back over his scalp in defiance, and an underbite smirk, letting you know no wisecracks you make will outsmart him. He was once Al Capone's driver, speeding through cornfields to make a 3 a.m. delivery with a tablecloth and sheet music placed in the passenger seat. I'm gathering first impressions. His eyes are watery galaxies. His smile indicates he frequently decides against acting on impish instincts. In a pinstripe Brooks Brothers suit, he's the first president of IBM, standing in a control room, confidently patting the side of a block-long machine and slowly but assuredly explaining away your worries about this being the future. I'm gathering first impressions. A plum-colored towel draped over his shoulder, glasses like a NASA engineer, plain white short-sleeved dress shirt. He climbed hills in Tibet and ate free meals at the Golden Temple. And when he came back to America, he spent his time finding jobs for any honest person that wanted one. He thinks about the vets he's counseling and the toll the tours of duty take on their dignity. I'm gathering first impressions, his hand floating over the end swell he's ready to grab. He hated watching this last round. That last guy landed too many hooks to the ribs and a right hand lead to the jaw, and it was ridiculous that the ref didn't call, hitting on the brakes. Now he's yelling advice, his voice breaking in spikes. Stop coasting and get to this fight. I'm gathering first impressions. She's wearing an apricot coat, white to yellow. She holds my hand, white to yellow, walks me to the door, white to yellow. We enter a wedding, white to yellow. Her son getting married, white to yellow. She hates dancing, white to yellow, and no one will ask her to if she's seen standing with me, white to yellow. Well, it's easy for your mom to spend Friday night trying to lecture the TV while half asleep, continuously saying, let it all breathe. But she's not the one out there braving the wind, trying to walk across that wing with just a 4-foot stick of balsa wood to help keep her balance. The Tsar's personal physician put the head of surgery in bed, called the staff around and explained this could be the end. But he's not really certain because he's just been too depressed at the prospect. At least that's what he thought, he said. But you were quite distracted by the kissing couple over on the observation deck. And you got yelled at for sleeping during a meeting by the head of marketing, but you didn't feel any guilt as you explained that you'd been sin-free since the night before, and the head of marketing agreed and closed the door to talk about opportunities for advancement. And the privates still cannot figure out how to break ranks or how to help your mom fill out a loan application or get a new sticker for her license plates. And the two of you prepare for their weekend leave by getting hair extensions and hitchhiking back to the hospital. You've been reading diaries, you've been reading autobiographies, you've been writing long treatises out on graph paper, you've been condescending to your enemies, you've been giving away easy answers that argue there are no easy answers. You've been running forensics on untabulated statistics. You've been staring down a man buzzsawing down a tree thinking anyone but me. You've been miming in a marching band, not playing a single note all season. You've been looking at the apple in your hand, hoping to know how you'll find another and you've stolen mail from your mother. You've looking at a fence thinking enough of this. You've been back to the hospital, staying after hours in the maternity ward, laying newly minted silver rectangles on newborns' chests. You've been counseling dry drunks you're nearer to sovereignty and whoever picks apples for free. You've been painting large unfinished arcs on your foyer walls, while in expensive new clothes you're nearer to sovereignty and whoever spreads apple seeds for free. You've been barefoot while feeding skunks. You've been seeing your reflection in cardboard. Let it all breathe is the reminder that you whisper to yourself when you're out walking across the wing, watching flotsam from Beechcraft Model 18s rotate overhead, amazed how machinery so heavy can defy gravity. Let it all breathe is the reminder that you whisper to yourself when you're out walking across the wing, watching jettison pollution floating in the Indian Ocean in utter disbelief how the laws of nature can be defied so carelessly. You're a wing walker, closer to sovereignty, closer to picking apples for free, closer to crashing the fence, closer to opening books. You're a wing walker trying to make a future full of stars, wishing you weren't feeling so far. You're a wing walker. You're a wing walker! Closer to sovereignty, closer to spreading apple seeds for free, closer to swimming naked, closer to learning languages. You're a wing walker trying to make a future full of stars, wishing you weren't feeling so far. But they found me, realistically resembling myself and fully alive in a different year. Questions were drawn to determine how I appeared there. I explained I went to sleep because I couldn't function being constantly awake, with theta waves turning back on themselves, spindle waves with no chance to crest, and the slow waves never close to arriving. A wing walker craves immunity to maintain sovereignty, feeds on concentration to maintain sovereignty, brushes memories to maintain sovereignty. Theta waves are just the start. Spindle waves stand you straight up. Slow waves safely deposit you back on the shore, and a wing walker needs clear vision and to be free of poison. You have to know where to turn on the lights before you go to sleep. 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 Go home and go to sleep. Go home and go to sleep. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. Go home and 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 go to sleep. 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 And that, folks, wraps up another edition of the Quarantine Stream. We hope that you've enjoyed yourself. I am Rich Millett. I will, by the grace of God, be back next week. And you know, things are complicated out there. So make smart decisions Be safe, be smart, stay safe, and stay free because you already are. And with that, please don't ever forget.
Life is but a dream in the quarantine stream.
Thank you, and God bless. Oh, I'll do a cheap plug, because I never do these sorts of things often enough. FluxLifeInc.com, all the books, all the films, everything I do. You can see it all. Stay home. Stay home, and you have hours upon hours upon hours upon hours of free things to pass your time with. So, anyway, God bless. See you next week. Goodbye.